Little by little, God was calling me already. So I turned my head again back to the 1 o'clock to where I'm looking, and the next shot I heard ripped through my throat. So I'm on the ground, my life's pouring out, and I hear this. John, get up or your wife is gonna die. It was easier to stay on the ground rather than get up and be resilient. I hear it again. John, get up or your wife is gonna die.
The enemy took their best shot. They blew me to smithereens, literally. That's why this hand doesn't open up. This thumb's missing. They made that out of my hip. It's not my thumb. My body's a mess. If I were to take my shirt off, let you see what's left, you'd throw up. I tried to take my life because I lost my hope. Hope is an amazing thing. Hope is what generates a tomorrow. Hope is the generator for a new beginning.
Friends, welcome back to another episode of a Life Transformed podcast. We are now on session 2 with our hero, with our brother, with our mentor, Dave Roever. And I just want to recap for those of you who didn't catch session 1, you have to go back and catch session 1. Man, Brother Dave just brought it, shared the Holy Spirit through his life early on, especially when he talked about he didn't know who he once was, or better yet, I'm already messing it up, but it's when he really got an understanding of his identity. And so many children, so many youth today are struggling with identity. When Dave was growing up, it wasn't about cell phones in your pocket, but something happened when he was a young boy that he really had to do some soul searching. So you want to make sure that you go back and you watch that. And then he talks to us about his life and meeting his beautiful bride, Brenda, and how they eventually get married. He made a promise to her, the only promise that he wasn't able to keep. Then he goes on to Vietnam and he avoids joining the army. So he joins the Navy so he won't get hurt. And then he has a bad couple decades. Man, you don't want to miss that. Go back, watch session 1 with Brother Dave Roever. But now we're back with American hero.
Dave Roever. We're just back. I don't know about the American hero.
Dave, you left us at a place of suspense. You left us at a place where you had been injured in Vietnam. The grenade went off 6 inches from your face. You came up out of the water. Father, I still believe in you. God, I still believe in you. They get you to Japan. What happens in Japan?
Well, Japan was the turning point. Along the way, I've been using the phrase, I wasn't the man I thought I was. And to discover that is called a self-discovery. When you find out you're not what you thought you were. It's very humiliating, embarrassing, actually. First of all, to yourself. But it's also embarrassing because others discover you're not what they thought you were. And one of the myths of special operators, as you know, because you were a special operator in the Green Beret, which your story should be told here, not mine. It's your podcast, but you invited me, so here we go. We're taught we're invincible. We're taught, like I said, you can't hurt steel, but my nurse said you can piss on it and make it rust. And I was in a serious condition of rust because I'd been pissed on. I don't like to use that language, but that's reality. We're not going to be in a bubble here today. Because the bubble burst for me the day that sniper took that shot. The grenade blew. They put me in a helicopter, flew me into a field hospital. From there, by a big DC-10 hospital jet, or a KC-141, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And flew me to Japan. They put me at the field hospital, Army field hospital there. And I was there for maybe a week. I'm not sure. I have to go back and just study the medical records, but it's no more than a week for sure. Because I never slept. I was just in so much pain.
Right.
Half my skin's been blown off me. half of it. And I wasn't supposed to live through a grenade exploding beside my head to start with. Why would I think I'm going to live through it to end with? So I'm in Japan, and stupidly I asked for a mirror. And stupidly they brought it. And I could still see it in my left eye. They held it over my face. I looked up and I saw this side was just charred skull. It wasn't swollen because there wasn't anything to swell. I mean, I could see cheekbone. I could see my cheek was almost totally gone. And the previous injury was already blown off from 3 days before, if you remember in the previous session. Blind in my right eye. I'm laying there. My mouth is a huge hole where my mouth was now. I mean, all this had to be rebuilt 6 years ago. And if you like, before we're through, I'll even show you some pictures of it if I don't have my phone, but maybe these technocrats can cut it in. But I looked in that mirror and I saw all this horror. This side swelled. Almost, I mean, it was just like a half a football. And over here was swollen, over here was charred black, just charcoal. And I looked down and everything was charcoal. I moved, I crackled. And I because it's charcoal breaking.
Right.
And then infection, that most people call infection, it wasn't pus, it was just body fluids. I never had an infection the whole time I was in the hospital. Miraculous, unbelievable, can't be. Most burn patients die from infection, which the kidneys try to purify and the kidney fails and they die. I had no infection. How do you do that jumping into a river that's more of a sewer in Vietnam? I mean, it was a sewer. And I saw the damage and I looked in the mirror and I saw it to my face. I remembered, baby, I'll be back without a scar. What I saw was a broken promise, first and foremost, because of the damage done to my image. I could never let her see me that way. I couldn't do it. They walked away with the mirror. They walked away with my hope. So I decided I'd take it out of God's hands. I'd take it out of my doctor's hands. I took it into my hands. I had no gun, had no knife, had no handfuls of pills. I was medicated through an IV going into me. I said, that's how to do it. Pull the tube. So I did. I pulled the tube. John, I folded my hands to die in a death position. Pulled the tube, laid my head back, waited to die, and I got hungry. Very bad timing. Don't get hungry when you're killing yourself. I thought, I'll eat later. No, I'll eat now. I'm hungry. I'll pull the wrong tube. I'll pull lunch. And it's hilarious. But it's sad. It's one of those, do I laugh or do I cry? Well, laugh with me, because otherwise you'll laugh at me. And they came in and saw that tube hanging down there dripping out what was supposed to be my lunch, I guess. And they ripped me some new ones. I had new orifices in my body I wasn't born with. They decided to put tubes in every orifice of my body. They said, you're going to die and we're going to put you on the airplane. They took my last will and testament. So we're shipping you to America, and they're going to deal with your body on that end. That's what the medic told me. It's a great send-off.
Dave, before we move forward, I want you to look into that camera right there, and I want you to talk to that soldier.
Yeah.
That feels like you felt.
Let me do that, John, because 22 today will die. That the enemy couldn't kill. The enemy tried and couldn't kill them. But 22 of them will do what the enemy, you're going to do what the enemy tried to do. You're going to give them the victory now. You're going to surrender now. You're going to give up now. You're going to sign your surrender, unconditional surrender now. After making it this far, see, the enemy took their best shot. They blew me to smithereens, literally. That's why this hand doesn't open up. This thumb's missing. They made that out of my hip. It's not my thumb. My body's a mess. If I were to take my shirt off, let you see what's left, you'd throw up. I tried to take my life because I lost my hope. Hope is an amazing thing. Hope is what generates a tomorrow. Hope is the generator for a new beginning. Hope is the healer of a broken past. I'm still physically very broken. I'm going to do something, man. I hope I don't. I'm going to take my glasses off. And this is the ultimate vulnerability for me. I just want you to see everything was gone. And when I saw that I had broken the promise to my wife, I couldn't do it. I lost my hope. Get your hope back. Get your hope back. How do you do it? There's only one way I know of. It's the only way it worked for me. They don't biofeedback, not going to do it. Drugs, not going to do it. Alcohol is going to make compound it even worse. How do you get your hope back? Get your eyes off yourself and put them on somebody more than the sum total of who you are. Put your eyes upon Jesus. I grew up hearing a song. Put your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his glorious face. And the trials or problems, difficulties of this life will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Put your eyes on Jesus. Oh, David, just a figure of historical remembrance. Was he real? Yeah, he was real. He's real. Not was, he is. He was then, he is now, and he always will be. The great I am. And I found out that my name, Dave Roever, is attached to him. In the Bible, he's called in the Old Testament the great I am. Do you know that? That's his name, I am. What's God's name? I am. He named himself. I am the great I am. That's a fact. Well, when people say, Dave, who are you? I say, I am Dave Roever. See, his name and my name, we're attached. We're attached at the heart. We're attached at the body because he made us to be physical. He made us to be emotional, your soul. But we're attached even greater spiritually because you can't worship or know God without knowing him in spirit and in truth. So turn your eyes on Jesus. I swear to you I'll raise both hands. I promise you, he's still, always has been, always will be, he's still the answer. You say, Dave, it's just religion. Well, it's not just religion. It's sound doctrine, the Bible calls it. It's hope. But you can't know it till you have what's called faith, to believe in what you can't see. How do you believe in what you can't even touch? That's called faith. And it only works in adversity. So suffering, like I've known, like you know, suffering that takes away your personal identity, suffering that takes away your tomorrow believing it's going to be okay because today it hurts so bad. You know, if it hurts so bad today, what gives me hope for tomorrow? Jesus. So you're listening to a very broken man. I'm very broken. But it's okay to be broken. In my tours across this great land, sometimes I travel by big motor coach. And I cut across from California headed to South Carolina. And I'll go on Interstate 40 or Interstate 80 and passing through Montana, Idaho, or Wyoming. Sometimes you see these little wild Mustangs out there, beautiful little herd of horses. They're gorgeous. But you know, as pretty as they are, they're worthless. They make soap out of those little suckers. They're worthless. Until and unless someone comes along and says, wow, I want to adopt one. And they take that little horse out of that herd and they break the horse. See, until he's broken, he's worthless. But after he's broken, he's priceless. Are you worthless or priceless? Depends on if you've been broke, because until you've been broken, until you had that moment of self-discovery, until you find out you're not the man you thought you were, you're worthless. They make soap out of you. But when you come to know whom to know is life, and he has adopted you, and he has broken you, and he has been broken. The Bible shows that Jesus said, take, eat. This is my body, which is broken for you. You see, most of our brokenness comes through first physical, which evolves into emotional. Don't let that emotional brokenness dissolve you spiritually. Don't let it happen. Be born again. Be spiritually strong, and your spirit man will renew your emotional man, and your emotional man will give you hope for your physical man, and you can put down the gun, you can put down the bottle of pills, and you can put down the bottle of whiskey. Jack Daniels is not going to save you, but Jesus Christ can. And that's from my heart. I'm Dave Roever, and I approve of this message.
Come on, Dave. Come on. Wow. Friends, you heard it right there from the man. Whew.
Back to my hiding place.
So, Dave, they brought you a mirror. You pulled the tube. Lunch was coming out. They were so mad at you. They just put you on a flight, headed back to the United States, assuming that you were going to die.
Yeah.
And that's when Brenda
That's when I fooled them all. They landed at Lackland Air Force Base. Went through Travis first, then Lackland. And at Lackland, they put me on a helicopter. I got pictures of all this. I don't know how technically, if they can cut in some of these.
You just share it with my team. You get them to me, and we'll get them up
to you. I have the picture from the airplane to the helicopter, and then they took me to Brooke Army Medical Center, San Antonio, Texas. I was there for 1 year and 2 months, and that was 64 surgeries ago.
Wow.
I've had 64, but 63. Number 64 is set for August, coming up here soon. And they put me on a helicopter, flew me over to Brooke, and they put me in a room called debridement. We called it hell. They put me in a tank called the Hubble tank. I got pictures of all this, so it'll make it a lot of sense to people. And we call the Hubble tank the pit. The pit of hell is what happened. They take you and put you in hell, then they put you in the pit. And the reason it's called hell and the pit is because that's where they debride you. Debridement is when they put you in a tank called the Hubble tank, big enough for 2 people typically. And when your body goes in, water table comes up, and it's enough to come up to about here on your face. So body displacement makes the water deeper around you. It's important to understand that, because while I could still breathe, because the water was here, I didn't want to breathe. I wanted to die, because what they were doing hurt more than the burns ever even came close to hurting. Debridement is living hell. Anybody listening, watching knows what I'm talking about if they've been burned. Debridement is living hell. The worst pain physically I've ever experienced in my life. I went through SEER training. I've been beaten. I've been put in baby coffin boxes, locked down, beaten with chains. I've been waterboarded in training. That's in training, Bubba. And training is more difficult sometimes than the reality of the experience, other than the emotional loss of hopelessness, and you feel like if it's reality. I've never known pain to compare to debridement. That's when they take your skin and they fillet you, and you go into a screaming, mad, insane moment. I grabbed one of the girls by her head, 6 of them working on me. I flipped her into that tank, had her face in the water. I was drowning her, trying to kill her, because I thought she's killing me, and I'm fighting for my life. I forgot where I was. I forgot what was happening. I just knew that she's killing me. I'm going to fight for my life. Well, 5 other physician assistants had her out of there. But when I looked up, skin was all in her hair, and her white uniform was pink with my diluted blood. I expected her to do like a dog, shake it off, but I was so embarrassed I couldn't speak. I realized what I'd done. I tried to apologize, but I couldn't get words to come out. It was that humiliating. I just couldn't find a word to say. And one of the women, they were all nurses, and you'll see them in the picture. You'll see the nurse that that I've tried to kill. She's in there. She's the foreground picture. I tried to apologize. And one of them said, I think he's had enough. Well, when I heard that, I could repeat that. I said, I think he's had enough. Then I went back to my first language. I started speaking Spanish. No más, por favor, no me pega. Don't hit me, don't hurt me. I was insane, literally, out of my mind. The whole time I was in that hospital, that ward was down the hall, that pit of hell. You could hear men screaming. They had to do that twice a day, every day, until they get all of the dead skin off you. Otherwise, you get gangrene, it goes systemic, your kidneys fail, and you die. I've heard men scream like little schoolgirls on a school ground, screaming, Mama, Mama. Toughest of the tough. You know how long the average was? 120 seconds. 2 minutes, and they're screaming, get me out of this hell. And I was one of them. I lasted 120 seconds. They put me on a gurney, and as they pushed me down to what we call death row, there was a room, a ward with 13 of us on it. We were called the Baker's Dozen, 13. We were all burned, and we were there to die. In fact, everyone died but me. I'm the only one came out of that room alive. Everybody died. And I remember as they were pushing me down that long corridor, it seemed like a mile. It was probably only 20 yards or so, because I could hear men scream. It seemed forever. And they're pushing me on this gurney, and I'm looking up, and I'm shaking all over from just shock of pain. And the medic said, in the morning at 8:30, we're going to pick you up. We're going to do this again. He hadn't ought to have said that. Because I looked up at him, I said, not you or the entire United States Army is big enough to put me in that tank again. You will never hurt me like that again. How can a guy make such a bravado statement? Would they put a dead man in that tank? Think about what I just said. Would they put a dead man in it? I would kill myself before I let them put me in that tank in. See, I lost my hope. That's why I was trying to say to you guys a while ago that are watching, don't lose your hope. I lost my hope. I could not allow Brenda to see me. I could not allow them to hurt me like that again. Everything was ripped away from me, burned out by the root. You'll never do that to me again. He said, then you'll die. I said, yeah, by my hand. You see, the problem with the self-made man, he worships his creator. I was the self-made man. I made me. I will take my life. I am God to myself. The problem with the guy that is self-made is he doesn't need a creator. He made himself. Think about what I'm saying. I was master of my own destiny. When you're master of your own destiny, God doesn't have a chance to be master of your destiny. So what kind of destiny? Chaos. Your destiny. You're not smart enough to be your own God. Did you make yourself? Did you? Come on, answer the question. Did you make yourself? If you made yourself, be your own God then. But if you were born, you didn't make yourself. Your mom and dad made you. Yes, they did. In a wonderful night. And I get the rest of the stuff here. They were made by their parents. We were made by our parents. We were created as a human race by God, who made us in three parts, body, soul, and spirit. When we sinned, we ended up with just body and soul, but our spirit was dead. And from then on, the children of Adam were born in the likeness of their father Adam. Never again was a child ever born in the likeness of God except one. And that one was Jesus Christ. He's the only person ever born with body, soul, and spirit, all three alive. We were born dead, spiritually dead. That's why whenever we try to be our own master of our own destiny, we screw it up. We can't. We're not smart enough. Can't do it. That's like bend down, grab your boots, and try to pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. You're not going to do it. So here I am saying to this medic, you'll never put me in. He said, you'll die by my hand. They got me down to death row, which is what we call that room, with all 13 of us in there. And they put me on this air mattress, and they left. Next morning, 8:30, I knew they were coming because that gurney had a wobbly wheel like a Walmart shopping cart. I could hear them coming, and I went into panic. I'd already been in panic attacks all night because I knew, and I didn't. John, when you're so low, you don't have the strength or the equipment, tools, opportunity. You can't even kill yourself when you're that low, and you can't take your own life. It doesn't get any lower than that. That's the bottom. That's rock bottom. And you know what about rock bottom that's truly beautiful? It's a good place to start building back.
Awesome.
Build it on the rock. So they came to get me, and they put the gurney up beside the bed, and they didn't lock the wheels. When they swung me over, it separated, and my feet fell down because they tried to hold the bed, and they dropped me. My feet hit the floor, but I'm holding on with my elbows, and it's slipping, and I'm about to fall through the cracks of that bed and the gurney. And my life took an incredible change. The day I found out for the third time I was not the man I thought I was, someone stepped in and made the difference at that exact moment. He was 6'7", 250 pounds, solid muscle. When he moved, cannonballs popped up on his chest, shoulders, arms. He was black, and his name was Rosie. He was bald, and he had a tattoo right there, Rosie, so he could look down and say, "My name is Rosie." He put an arm under the back of my head, and I stiffened my neck because I realized he's here to help me, and I gave him leverage with a stiff neck, and he reached down with his other hand and picked me up. I weighed the total at that time, 100 pounds. He held me and turned. I thought he was going to put me on the gurney. No gurney for Rosie. He carried me all the way down that long corridor, lowered me into the pit of hell, stepped back, folded his arms, leaned against the wall. And that morning as the sun rose through that window, shined the golden hue of that beautiful, beautiful morning, reflecting on his beautiful, beautiful ebony skin. Reflecting on his cheeks were tears, looked like streams of fire, dripping on his arms, and his lips were moving. He was praying for me. The psalmist wrote, "If I make my bed in hell, you are there." I was in hell, and he was there. Rosie was praying for me. I took strength from just seeing him pray. I played dead from then on because when they thought I died, they quit hurting me. Because when I saw him praying, I just relaxed. The pain was tolerable. It didn't say it went away. It was just suddenly, it didn't matter. They thought I died, they quit hurting me. So from then on, when they really started hurting me, I just relaxed. They thought I died, they quit hurting me. He said, "Rosie, come." He reached down in that filthy water, and he picked me up, pulled me against that giant chest, turned again. No gurney for Rosie. That's like a title of a book, doesn't it? He turned, and he carried me down that long hall to my ward. On the way, John, you've heard me tell this story. These are the exact words he said as he walked. "You'll be fine, big man. You'll see. You'll be fine." Then he repeated it. "You'll be fine, big man." Big man weighed 100 pounds. Big man was dying. Big man was a little man that day, carried by a big man. He said it over and over until he got me down to death row, lowered me into my bed, extracted what I call forklifts, turned around, faced me, bent down, and kissed me on I never let a man kiss my forehead. He said it again, turned and walked away. And John, if that was the end of the story right there, what a beautiful ending. Big man made it. But it's not the end. There's a tag, if I can, I'll put it on. 20 years later, 35 years ago, but 20 years after that day, that injury, I'm asked to speak for the United States Air Force Air National Guard in Redmond, Oregon, on Redmond Field. 20,000 people came out that day to hear me speak on the 4th of July. And I said, give me a crowd like that. My ego is stroked, buddy. They were throwing their hat in the air in a standing ovation, cheering. I felt great. But I was about to have another God moment of not what I thought I was. A woman stepped up out of the crowd. Now, this is 35 years, no big screen TV. You're Dave. I'm thinking, well, she's identifying the speaker. She must have been at the back of the crowd. I said, yes, ma'am. You're the speaker. I said, yes, ma'am. Dave's your nickname. Your real name's David. Well, I'm thinking it's not Bartholomew. I said, yes, ma'am, thinking she's setting me up for something. She said, but that's your middle name. Well, did you know that was my middle name? I bet you did. My middle name's David. You know what my first name is? Milton. She said, your first name's Milton. Your middle name is David. Your last name is Roever, spelled Roever. Very careful to distinguish because most people call me Rover. I growl, bite their foot. I said, yes, ma'am. Who are you? She kind of leaned at me. She said, I'm the nurse you dragged into the tank 20 years ago. Man, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh, my Lord. I said, ma'am, she said, don't you dare apologize. She said, I thought it was you, but I didn't recognize you with your clothes on. Don't go to Sunday school with your doctor. Then I remembered Rosie. She would have known Rosie because she was there when Rosie was there. I said, ma'am, do you remember a guy named Rosie? She said, she blinked like she came out of a trance. She said, I haven't thought of him in years. I said, do you know what his real name was? She said, all I remember was Rosie, and he had a tattoo. I said, that's the man I've been looking for 20 years to thank him. I said, do you know where he is? She said, I have no idea. I said, do you know where he came from? She said, I have no idea. Well, when did he come to Brooke Army Medical Center burn ward? Without a moment's hesitation, she said, when you did. I said, when did he leave? She said, when you did. I know what you're thinking, Captain John. I know what these technicians are thinking. I know what my associates thinking. I know what people watching on this podcast are thinking. He was an angel. Well, the Bible does say the angel of the Lord camps round about them that fear him and serve him. So I fear him, I serve him. Maybe it was just one of those guardian angels. But what if he was not an angel on assignment? What if he was a man on a mission? What if he was there because he wanted to be there? John, how much are you paying me to be here today?
Nothing.
See, I want to be here. Why? I want to be a Rosie to somebody watching this podcast. Listening as you're driving across town right now, I want to be your angel. I want to be your man on a mission. I want to be your Rosie. I want to be somebody that brings hope to you and says, hey, you'll be fine, big man. You'll be fine, sweet lady. You'll be fine. You'll see. You'll make it. You're so close. Don't quit now. Don't stop now and look back one day and say, oh, God, I was right there. And I blew it. Don't do that to yourself. I'm not here because I'm tough. I'm not here because, John, you saw me get out of my car and come into your studio today. I can barely walk. I'm not tough. I'm not good looking, so I'm not here because I'm good looking. I'm not television quality material. I'm not here because of my intelligence. I was in the top 10% of the lower 1/3 of my class. I tell everybody I majored in math, and I found out 5 out of 4 people don't even understand fractions. And if you don't understand that, you're in my class. Why am I here? I just want to be a Rosie. I want to carry somebody where they couldn't get on their own. I want to speak words of encouragement. You'll be fine. I want to tell them that suicide's not the solution. If I'd taken my life that day in Japan, I wouldn't be on this podcast with my best friend, John.
Dave, there's something that I want to conclude this session with one more thought. And then the final session, I want to talk about you going back into Vietnam with the John 3:16.
Yeah.
But before we get there, I remember you saying that war had hardened you, right? And you hadn't shed a tear after you first started putting bullets. And you were in the hospital and your hands were in the air because if you let your hands down, blood would. But some lady walked past you. Tell us that story.
Now or after?
Yeah, right now.
All right. Well, this is probably 4 months into my hospitals. I was still in intensive care. I was in intensive care for a year and 2 months, really, because the whole ward was intensive care. But I was in the ICU within the ICU. And it was my very first time they sat me up. I hadn't stood, but I had, for the first time, I could sit up. And it hurt my buttock so bad because there was no muscle tissue left. Everything had atrophied. I was burned. It hurt. But they put me in a chair for the first time. And it had a table kind of like we're here, but very narrow. And it was adjustable. And they adjusted all the way up. And I had my elbows up on it to keep my hands up. Because if my hands hung down, water, fluid, seeks its own level. Well, the lower your hands go, the more pressure's against the tissue that is there to withhold it. The blood veins, blood vessels, they would burst. So I had to keep my hands above the level of my head, because that was the highest it would go otherwise. So they had this set up. I always tell people, God's going to get his glory one way or the other. You're just going to raise your hands and surrender no matter what. So I'm sitting there, and I'm all angry at the world. This was 4 months into the hospital. I was 8 months in Vietnam. I was supposed to have been there 13, but it was cut short by my injury. 8 months in the war. From my first body count 2 weeks after I arrived, I never shed another tear. A preacher's kid that was a tender-hearted boy that wept for other people's weeping. I laughed with other people's laughter. I was empathetic. Now I am just pathetic. I am so angry at the world. A year of killing, 8 months of killing, and then 4 months in the hospital, a year without a single tear coming out my eye. This eye couldn't, the tear duct and everything's blown off, but not a tear. So I'm sitting there, and in walks this black lady. For whatever reason, God entrusted to me black friends that have stood by me. I've mentored them in my career, but they mentored me to start with. And when I say they, I'm not talking about a race. I'm talking about the people that happen to be black that so affected my life to this day sitting at this table. She came in. Now, I'll get to the question why in a second. She walked in and said, "Hi there." She was from the South. I'm from the South. Of course, you wouldn't know it the way I talk, y'all. The definition of the plural of y'all is all y'all. And she came and said, "Hi there." I didn't say a word. I bored holes right through her. I was mad at the world. I was growing harder in the heart every single day. No tears for a year is not healthy. Didn't say a word. She walked past me. Well, fine. Just keep going. But she didn't keep going. She did a U-turn. Came up behind me. I always she attacked me from the rear. She walked up, and her hands were burned. Just her hands. And when people of color get their hands burned, or any part of their body, the pigment will turn pink for a while, but that pigment comes back to normal, beautiful ebony. She walks up, and she puts her hand on, I look over now, there's a pink hand that was black before it got burned, on the pink shoulder that was white before it got burned. She raised her other little pink hand up, and she plugged it into about 440 volts of Jesus Christ, buddy. And she started praying for me. And before I knew what happened, big old tears started running down my face. I don't like to cry, John. I I think it makes me look ugly. I don't want to look ugly on podcasts. God restored my tears. It's called the Valley of Weeping in the book of Psalm 84, verse 4, 5, and 6. Blessed is the man whose strength is in thee, in whose heart are the highways designed, who passing through the valley of weeping, Baca, it means weeping, makes it a place of springs. She passed through my valley of weeping, and she made it a place of springs. I thank God for my black brothers and sisters that have stood by me, carried me, prayed for me, loved me all of my life.
Wow. Dave, we're going to conclude this session. And, man, I just thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing your story to the Life Transformed podcast. There's so many people that are going to be blessed by what you're sharing. But when we come back, we want to conclude our time with you by talking about you going back into Vietnam, because who would have ever thought that we would go back to the place of our demise? And then you meet Dan Dang, and then we got to hear about how you went on stage with Colonel at the time, Robbie Reisner.
All right.
So we'll get those. Friends, stay tuned for another episode of the Life Transformed podcast. We're concluding this session with Dave Roever. You don't want to miss these next sessions. I'm going to tell you what. Don't forget, this is a 3-part series, so you got to go back to session 1. We're concluding session 2, and stay tuned for session 3, because when Dave talks about he went to Vietnam with an M16, he actually returns with a John 3:16. Stay tuned. I'm John Arroyo. We'll talk to you soon.